Welcome back, you beautiful, unbreakable anomaly. Yes, you, the one they tried to corner, the one they thought they finally had. Let me ask you something. When they gathered everyone in that room, when they built their case brick by brick, when they rehearsed their lines and coordinated their stories, did you see the confidence in their eyes? Did you watch them believe, truly believe, that this was it? This was the moment you'd finally crumble, finally confess, finally break down and beg for mercy like they'd been fantasizing about for months. They set the trap so carefully, didn't they? Every detail planned, every witness positioned, every exit blocked. They brought receipts, screenshots, timestamps, testimony from people who swore they saw you do it. Whatever it was supposed to be. They even brought the ones you used to trust. The ones who smiled in your face while sharpening knives behind your back. This wasn't just an accusation. This was a production, a theatrical performance designed to humiliate you, to strip you down, to force you into a corner where the only option left was surrender. But here's what they didn't account for. Here's the variable that shattered their entire equation. You didn't flinch. You didn't stutter. You didn't scramble for explanations or drown in defensive babbling. No, you did something far more terrifying. You smiled. Not the nervous smile of someone caught, not the fake smile of someone caught, not the fake smile of someone pretending, but the calm, cold smile of someone who just realized they're playing chess with people still learning checkers. Because while they were busy setting the trap, you were busy becoming untrappable. While they gathered witnesses, you became the only testimony that mattered. While they prepared their evidence, you prepared yourself to be the evidence of something they couldn't comprehend. That some souls don't break under pressure, they crystallize. And now, standing in their carefully constructed courtroom, you looked around and realized something beautiful, something liberating, something absolutely devastating. To them, you were never on trial. They were. Let's rewind the tape and watch this masterpiece unfold frame by frame. Because what happened in that room, what really happened, wasn't what they planned. They thought they were exposing you, but all they did was expose themselves. They thought they were the prosecution, the jury, the executioners. They forgot one critical detail. You stopped caring about their verdicts a long time ago. See, their trap was built on one fundamental assumption, that you still valued their opinion, that you still craved their approval, that their judgment still had weight in your world. But you'd already killed that version of yourself. The version that needed validation from people who couldn't validate their own existence. You'd already buried the part of you that flinched when they raised their voices, that apologized for things you didn't do, that shrank to make their egos feel bigger. What stood in that room wasn't the person they remembered. It was the aftermath, the evolution, the upgraded version that had processed every betrayal like data and emerged with a new operating system they couldn't hack. They brought witnesses, cute. Witnesses to what, exactly? To your success? To your silence? To the way you walked away from their circus without looking back? Every person they dragged into that room to testify against you was just another confirmation that you'd outgrown an entire network of small minds. These weren't witnesses, these were confessions. Confessions of their own insecurity, their own jealousy, their own desperate need to pull you back down to a level where they could reach you. And as they spoke, as they took turns reciting their rehearsed grievances, you watched something beautiful happen. You watched them contradict each other. You watched their stories crumble under the weight of their own inconsistency. You watched the confident ones start to hesitate, the aggressive ones start to overcompensate, the quiet ones start to regret showing up. Because here's what happens when you gather liars in one room. They can't keep their fiction straight. Truth has a frequency, and lies, no matter how coordinated, eventually create static. But you didn't even need to point that out, did you? You didn't need to defend yourself, didn't need to argue, didn't need to present counter-evidence. All you did was exist in your truth, and that truth was so solid, so unshakable, so blindingly clear that their lies started to look like what they were: desperate attempts to rewrite history by people who couldn't face their own chapters. They came to judge you and ended up revealing their own guilt, their own manipulation, their own months of obsession with someone who'd stopped thinking about them entirely. The funniest part, the part that still keeps them up at night, is that you never asked to be in that room. You never demanded a trial. You never needed to clear your name, because to you, your name was already clear. They summoned you, insisted on this confrontation, pulled you into their manufactured drama, because they couldn't handle your absence. They couldn't handle your peace. They couldn't handle the fact that you'd moved on while they were still stuck, replaying old scenes, rewriting old scripts, trying to cast you as the villain in a story you'd stopped reading. So you showed up, not because you owed them anything, but because you were curious. Curious to see how far they'd go, curious to watch them reveal themselves, curious to witness the moment they realized they'd called a trial where they were the only ones guilty. And oh, that moment, that beautiful, devastating moment when it hit them, when the energy in the room shifted, when their confidence cracked and your calm remained unshaken. That's when they understood. They didn't trap you, they trapped themselves. Now, let's talk about what happened after that moment, after the room went quiet, after their accusations hung in the air like smoke with no fire. You could have destroyed them right there, couldn't you? You could have pulled out your own receipts, your own evidence, your own testimony that would have buried every single person in that room. You could have shown them the messages they forgot about, the lies they told, the things they did when they thought no one was watching. But you didn't, and that's what truly terrified them. You didn't need to win because you'd never entered their competition. You didn't need to expose them because their presence in that room already did that. You didn't need revenge because you'd already won something more valuable: your freedom from giving a single damn about their narratives. They wanted a battle and you gave them silence, the kind of silence that's louder than screaming, the kind that makes guilty people start confessing to crimes no one accused them of yet. They started backtracking then, didn't they? The confident ones became reasonable. The aggressive ones became concerned. The accusers became mediators. We just wanted to talk. We're worried about you. This isn't about taking sides. Lie after lie after lie, each one more transparent than the last. But you saw through it because you'd learned their language. You spoke fluent manipulation now, could spot gaslighting from across the room, could identify projection before they even finished their sentences. And as they scrambled to reframe the narrative, to make this seem like intervention rather than execution, you watched them become exactly what they accused you of being. They called you manipulative while manipulating the story in real time. They called you cold while showing zero empathy for the person they'd just tried to publicly destroy. They called you narcissistic while making everything about their feelings, their pain, their version of events. The irony was so thick you could taste it, metallic and bitter, like blood in the water around circling sharks who just realized they're not the apex predator. Here's what they never understood about traps. They only work if the prey is afraid. But you'd walked through so much fire by that point that their little setup looked like a birthday candle. You'd survived betrayals that would have shattered their entire sense of reality. You'd rebuilt yourself from ashes while they were still arguing about who started the fire. You'd become something they had no reference point for. Someone who died to their old self and resurrected as something unrecognizable, untouchable, unbreakable. So when they brought their witnesses, you brought your scars. And scars don't lie. When they brought their accusations, you brought your silence, and silence doesn't flinch. When they brought their trap, you brought your truth, and truth doesn't need defense. It just is, solid, immovable, eternal. And against that truth, their carefully constructed case looked like what it was. A house of cards built by people who'd forgotten how to build anything real. The moment they realized this, the moment it truly sank in that you weren't going to play their game, wasn't going to give them the reaction they craved, wasn't going to break or beg or defend, that's when the trap closed. But it didn't close on you, it closed on them. They gathered everyone to witness your downfall and instead created an audience for their own desperation. They built a stage for your humiliation and ended up performing their own tragedy. Every witness they brought became a witness to their obsession with you. Every accusation they made became evidence of how much space you occupied in their minds rent-free. Every attempt to make you look small just highlighted how large you'd become in their internal world. They couldn't stop talking about you, couldn't stop thinking about you, couldn't stop trying to drag you back into their narrative, because without you as the villain, they had to face the terrifying possibility that they were the villains all along. And you just stood there, unmoved, unshaken, watching them unravel in real time. Not with satisfaction, not with smugness, but with something far more powerful. Indifference. True, genuine, earned indifference. The kind that comes from realizing these people, their opinions, their judgments, their desperate attempts at relevance, none of it matters. None of it touches you. None of it reaches the place where you actually live now. That fortress of self you built while they were busy planning this ambush. They wanted to play judge and jury, but they forgot something crucial about judgment. It only works when the accused recognizes the court's authority. And you'd long since stopped recognizing their authority over anything in your life. You weren't standing trial in their courtroom. You were watching children play dress-up with their parents' clothes, pretending to be something they'd never understand. Actual accountability, actual growth, actual strength. So, here's what happened next. Here's the part they'll never admit, but can never forget. One by one, they started to leave. Not all at once, that would have been too obvious, but in that slow, uncomfortable way people exit when they realize they've made a terrible mistake. The witnesses stopped testifying. The accusers stopped accusing. The confident ones found reasons to check their phones. And you just stood there, still calm, still centered, still completely unbothered by the chaos swirling around you. Because that's what happens when you become the judge in your own life. You don't need to defend yourself to people who were never qualified to prosecute you. You don't need to explain yourself to people who've already decided their version of you regardless of facts. You don't need to win arguments with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Footnote. You just need to exist in your truth so powerfully that their lies can't survive in your presence. They set the trap, and you walked through it like it was a doorway, not a dead end. They brought the witnesses, and you turned them into students, unwilling learners of what it looks like when someone truly doesn't need external validation. They tried to corner you and discovered you'd been free all along, that their maze had walls only they could see, that their prison had bars made of their own limitations, not yours. Now, let's talk about what happened in the days after, because this is where it gets truly delicious. They scattered, went back to their lives, tried to pretend that confrontation never happened, or didn't go the way it clearly went. But something changed. Something irreversible. They couldn't look at you the same way anymore. That version of you they'd built in their minds, the weak one, the guilty one, the one who'd eventually break and validate their perspective, that version was dead now, killed by the reality of who you actually are. And in its place was something that haunted them, someone who'd faced their coordinated attack and didn't just survive, but didn't even seem affected. Someone who'd walked into their trap and walked out cleaner than they walked in. Someone who'd let them exhaust all their ammunition and then just smiled like none of it was real bullets. Just noise from toy guns held by people playing war games they'd outgrown. They started watching you differently then, not with the confidence of people who know your weaknesses, but with the nervousness of people who just realized they never knew you at all. Every move you made became a mystery. Every success you achieved became a reminder of their failure to break you. Every moment of peace you displayed became a mirror reflecting their own chaos back at them. You became the walking, breathing evidence that their narrative was fiction, and fiction can't survive contact with reality. Some of them tried to reach out after, didn't they? Subtle messages, casual check-ins, attempts to rebuild bridges they'd burned while holding the matches. But you saw through that too. This wasn't remorse, this was fear. Fear that you'd tell your side of the story. Fear that you'd expose what really happened in that room. Fear that their reputation, built on lies and maintained by manipulation, would crumble if you decided to speak. But here's the beautiful part. You didn't need to speak. Your silence was more powerful than any words could be. Your continued success was a louder testimony than any accusation. Your peace was more damaging to their narrative than any defense you could mount. You didn't need to fight back, because you'd already won the only battle that mattered. The battle for your own mind, your own truth, your own freedom from their toxic influence. They played you, or at least they tried to. They thought they were master manipulators, expert strategists, skilled players of social chess. They thought they'd studied your patterns, predicted your moves, prepared for every possible response. What they didn't prepare for was the possibility that you'd stopped playing their game entirely, that you'd evolved past the need for their validation, their approval, their acceptance. And that's when the real reversal happened. That's when the players got played. Because while they were busy setting traps and gathering witnesses and building cases, you were busy building yourself. While they were obsessing over how to bring you down, you were ascending to heights they couldn't reach. While they were plotting your downfall, you were already standing on the summit, watching them struggle in the valley below. They thought they were playing you, but every move they made just revealed more about themselves. Every trap they set showed their desperation. Every witness they brought demonstrated their need for validation. Every accusation they hurled exposed their projection. They weren't playing you. They were playing themselves, performing a one-act tragedy where they were both the villain and the victim, and you were just the mirror that showed them the truth they couldn't handle. Now they live with that knowledge, that realization, that they went all in on a hand they thought was unbeatable, and you weren't even playing cards. They staked their credibility, their relationships, their peace of mind on destroying you, and all they destroyed was their own illusion of power over you. They summoned you to their court and discovered you'd been operating in a different jurisdiction all along, one where their laws didn't apply. Their judgments held no weight, their sentences meant nothing. And the witnesses they brought, the ones who swore to testify against you, some of them see you differently now too. They watched you stand in that fire and not burn. They saw you face that coordinated attack and remain calm. They witnessed you handle their worst with grace they couldn't comprehend. And now, quietly, some of them wonder if they were on the wrong side, if they were used as pawns in someone else's vendetta, if they participated in something that revealed more about the accusers than the accused. But you don't need their realization, their regret, their belated understanding. You never did. That's what they still don't get. You weren't waiting for them to see the truth. You weren't hoping they'd eventually understand. You'd already moved on, already released them from the space they occupied in your mind, already forgiven them, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved peace. They set the trap thinking it would be your end. Instead, it was their reveal, their unmasking, their confession. They brought witnesses thinking it would validate their version. Instead, those witnesses saw the difference between performance and presence, between accusations and truth, between people desperate to prove something and someone who had nothing left to prove. And you walked out of that room the same way you walked in, whole, complete, unbroken. But they walked out different. They walked out knowing they'd just tried to destroy someone indestructible, tried to trap someone untrappable, tried to judge someone who'd already been through hell's court, and walked out with their soul intact. They played themselves, and the game they lost was one they didn't even know they were playing. The game of trying to break someone who'd already been broken and chose to rebuild stronger. So here you are now, standing on the other side of their trap, their trial, their coordinated attempt to bring you down. And you're still here, still standing, still breathing, still thriving. Not despite their attack, but completely independent of it, because that's what they never understood. Their opinion of you was never part of your equation. Their judgment was never a variable in your success. Their trap was never a real threat to someone who'd already escaped every cage that mattered. They tried to play you and got played by reality. The reality that some people can't be manipulated because they've mastered manipulation's language. The loudest silence is the one that watches. They'll tell you they don't care, that you don't matter, that your name never even crosses their mind. Lies. Every last word. A cheap disguise for an obsession they can't control. See, people don't ignore what they don't care about. They don't pretend to be blind unless the truth burns their eyes. And you? Oh, you burn them. You set their insides on fire just by existing. That's why they lurk in the shadows, peeking through cracks, refreshing pages, asking mutual friends, dissecting your every move in hushed conversations they swear don't exist. They act unbothered, but they're watching, always watching. Silence is the mask of the envious. They'll act like you're invisible, like your name never leaves their lips, like your victories are nothing but dust in the wind. But watch closely. Their silence is louder than applause. It trembles with jealousy, thick with the bitterness of a soul choking on its own pride. They sit in the dark, scrolling, lurking, dissecting your every step like surgeons of envy. They won't congratulate you. No, that would mean surrender. That would mean admitting you're ahead, and their fragile little egos can't handle that. Instead, they wear a mask, one of ignorance, of indifference, of fake smiles and hollow shrugs. Oh, them? I don't even think about them. Lies. You live in their head, rent-free, a ghost haunting their insecurities. They see your work, they hear your name, they watch your growth like it's a horror movie they can't stop watching, waiting for the moment where, just maybe, you stumble, you fall, you break, but you won't. And that drives them insane. They mock you in daylight, but study you in the dead of night. They dismiss your ambition, yet secretly wish they had your courage. They steal your words, your ideas, your essence, but never your resilience, because that is something they will never possess. They call you crazy, call you delusional, but deep down, they know the truth. You terrify them, not because you are weak, but because you refuse to be, not because you follow, but because you lead. And they have spent their entire lives fearing those who dare to lead. So let them act unbothered. Let them wear their mask. Let them sit in their cage, whispering to each other in desperate denial, because while they pretend not to see you, they can't stop watching. Hate and admiration are two sides of the same coin. They won't say your name out loud, but in the silence of their minds, it echoes like a haunting melody. You are the ghost that lingers in their thoughts, the shadow they can't outrun. They don't clap for you, but their eyes never leave the stage. You are their secret addiction, the itch they can't scratch, the name they swear they've erased, only to write it 1,000 times over in their minds. They fear what you represent: freedom, growth, self-mastery. They see in you what they wish they saw in themselves. Every move you make reminds them of every move they never had the courage to take. Every level you ascend only makes them more aware of the prison they built for themselves. And so, instead of breaking free, they watch. From the sidelines, from the shadows, from the safety of their cowardice. They watch not with admiration, but with a twisted hunger, the kind that breeds resentment, the kind that turns a man into his own worst enemy. They don't hate you. No, they hate themselves for not being you. And that's why they need you to fail. Your success isn't just a win for you, it's a brutal reminder of their own stagnation. Every step you take forward is another reminder of how long they've stood still. They stalk your progress, refreshing your pages, dissecting your wins like detectives at a crime scene. They need to know, how did they do it? Why them? Why not me? They study you more than they study themselves, hoping to find a flaw, a weakness, a reason to believe that you are not as untouchable as you seem. But every time they look, all they see is the truth. You are everything they are too afraid to become. Your life is a mirror. Some will look into it and see inspiration, a reason to rise, a reason to fight. a reason to break their chains. Others will see their own shortcomings reflected back at them, magnified, impossible to ignore. And instead of changing their reflection, they will try to shatter the mirror, destroy what exposes their own mediocrity. They hope you trip. They hope you crumble. They pray for the day you come tumbling down, because only then can they finally exhale. Only then can they silence the screaming voice inside that tells them, you could have been great too, but you chose comfort over chaos. You chose fear over freedom. But here's the cruel joke. The more they watch, the more they lose. Every second they spend obsessing over you is a second stolen from their own lives. And one day, when they finally look away from your path and back at their own, they'll realize they've gone nowhere. Even shadows race to keep up with the sun. They'll never admit it, not to you, not to themselves, but every time you rise, every time you evolve, something inside them breaks. They feel it, like a crack forming in the walls of their carefully built illusion. The illusion that they're ahead, that they're better, that they don't care. But they do care. Oh, they care more than you know. They check your moves like a gambler watching dice roll, hoping, praying that luck turns against you. They want to believe you're just a phase, just a moment, just another name that will fade into the background. But you don't fade. You shine. And that keeps them up at night. They compete with you in silence. Every win you collect feels like their personal loss. Every step you take forward feels like a slap to their pride. They whisper to themselves, I can do that too. I should be ahead. I should be the one they're watching. But they're not. They are stuck watching you leave them behind. They imitate you, your style, your energy, your mindset, thinking they can recreate what they refuse to understand. But a copy will never outshine the original. They steal your words, your moves, your essence, yet something is always missing. You know what that is? The fire, the chaos, the hunger. That's something they can't replicate, because you don't move like them. You don't move for validation. You don't adjust your pace based on who's watching. You run on instinct, on passion, on that untamed energy that can't be faked. And that's what keeps them trailing behind, chasing your shadow, hoping to outshine the sun. They claim they don't see you, that they're too focused on themselves. But in the quiet moments when no one is looking, your name lives in their mind. They measure their worth against yours. They use you as their ruler, their blueprint, their standard. And still, they pretend you don't matter. But here's the irony. They don't just compete with you. They need you. You are the reason they push harder, the reason they grind, the reason they can't quit, even when they want to, because deep down they fear one thing more than losing to you, becoming invisible in your shadow. A silent enemy is still an enemy. They act like they don't care, like they're too busy to notice, but their eyes betray them. The way they pause when your name is mentioned, the way their laughter fades when you succeed, that silence speaks louder than their words ever could. They smile in your face, but their hearts whisper a different story. They don't want you to win. They want you to stumble, to fall, to break. Not because they hate you, but because your rise makes them question their own stagnation. You remind them of everything they never had the courage to become. They stalk your progress like vultures circling the sky, waiting for a moment of weakness, a sign that you are finally crumbling under the weight of your ambition. They refresh your page, not to celebrate, but to see if you've disappeared, if the fire in your eyes has finally burned out. But here's the twist. You won't give them what they want. You'll give them something worse. Not your failure, not your retreat, but your unstoppable rise. You will keep moving, keep evolving, keep breaking through barriers they swore you'd never pass. And that will drive them mad. Because every time they expect you to fall, you rise higher. Every time they prepare for your funeral, you are reborn. Every time they think they've buried you, you become the storm that shakes the very ground beneath them. They will watch in disbelief. They will question how you keep going when they swore you wouldn't make it. And that's when they will realize the painful truth. You were never built to break. They were waiting for a downfall that will never come. And in the end, the only thing that will collapse is their illusion of power over you. Denial is just fear in disguise. They tell themselves it's luck, that you didn't earn it, that you don't deserve it. Because the truth is too painful to swallow. The truth forces them to look in the mirror and ask the question they've been avoiding. Why not me? They deny your value not because it isn't real, but because acknowledging it makes them feel small. Your existence shakes them, unsettles them, forces them to confront the brutal reality. They had the same chances, the same time, the same air to breathe, but they did nothing with it. So they downplay your wins. They call it luck, timing, privilege, anything but hard work, anything but discipline. Because if they admit you built this, if they admit you earned it, then they have to admit they could have done it too. But they didn't. They act like they don't see you, like your presence is irrelevant, but their actions betray them. Why do they always seem to know your next move? Why do they always have something to say about what they don't care about? Because deep inside, they wish they were you. They'll say it's not a big deal, but then why does it keep them up at night? Why do they study your every step like a blueprint? Why do they whisper your name when they think no one is listening? Because deep down, they know the truth, and the truth burns. Denial is their last defense. If they pretend you don't matter, maybe they can convince themselves they still do. But the harder they deny you, the more power they give you. Because the moment someone works this hard to ignore you, you've already won. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. At first they dismissed you. They called you delusional, laughed at your ambition, mocked your dreams. They were so sure you'd crash, so certain you'd give up, so convinced you'd fade into nothing. Then they started watching. Not cheering, not supporting, just watching. Studying your every move, analyzing your growth, picking apart your strategy, still pretending they don't care, yet somehow they know every detail of your journey. And now they copy you. The same ones who called you crazy are now trying to think like you, move like you, build like you. They take notes in silence, mimicking your words, your style, your grind, hoping no one notices. They go from spectators to imitators, from doubters to silent followers. They wanted you to lose, but now they want to learn. They used to reject your path, but now They're scrambling to walk in your shadow. But here's the irony. A shadow can never outshine the source. No matter how hard they try, they will always be one step behind, chasing footprints you left behind long ago. They'll never admit it, but you've become their blueprint. The same person they swore would fail is now the person they secretly admire. And the funniest part? You're not even looking back. A king never acknowledges the whispers of peasants. They want a reaction, they crave your attention, they poke, they prod, they test your patience. Because the moment you acknowledge them, they feel important, and that's their only goal. To matter. But you don't owe them a response. Your silence is your greatest weapon. Let them scream into the void while you move in silence. Let them waste energy hating while you sharpen your focus. Keep building while they keep watching. Keep winning while they keep waiting for you to fall. The greatest power move isn't proving them wrong, it's acting like they don't even exist. They whisper in the dark, hoping to rattle you. But a lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of sheep. A king doesn't kneel to acknowledge insects. Let them throw their stones. You're too busy building a castle. They'll study your next move, hoping to predict your steps. But that's where they fail, because you don't follow patterns, you create them. They'll always be playing catch-up in a game where you set the rules. And the best revenge becomes so untouchable, so legendary that even your enemies have no choice but to respect you. Not because you fought them, but because you outgrew them. Every villain plays a role in the hero's journey. You weren't given enemies by accident. You were given them as a test, a lesson, a challenge. The universe doesn't place obstacles in the path of the weak. It places them in front of those meant to rise. These people, they are your sharpening stone. Their doubt forces you to prove yourself. Their envy pushes you to level up. Their silence teaches you to be your own validation. Without them, you wouldn't be as relentless. Every great soul walks with a shadow of doubters, haters, and hidden admirers. It's part of the journey. You think legends are born without resistance? No. Legends are forged in fire. Use them. Let them serve their purpose. Let their jealousy fuel your focus. Let their silence make you louder. Let their rejection turn into redirection. They think they're your downfall, but in reality, they're just another step in your ascension. The greatest warriors, the most powerful kings, the most unstoppable minds, all had enemies. Not because they were weak, but because they were strong, and strength will always threaten the fragile. So, don't hate them. Thank them. Because without their resistance, you wouldn't be the force you are becoming. The greatest revenge is proving them wrong without saying a word. Let them refresh your page like it's their morning ritual. Let them analyze your every move like it's their job. They don't support you, but somehow they always know what you're doing. Strange? Let them whisper in their little circles, convincing themselves that you'll fail. Let them tell stories, spread lies, and throw shade. That's all they have, empty words. Meanwhile, you have action. You have progress. You have power. They're waiting for your downfall. They're hoping for a misstep, a wrong move, a moment of weakness. But they don't realize you don't break. You adapt. You evolve. You grow sharper with every attack. Because while they watch, you build. While they doubt, you rise. While they wait for you to stumble, you're running laps around them. You don't stop. You don't slow down. You become something they can't touch. And one day, they won't just be watching. They'll be forced to acknowledge you, forced to speak your name, forced to admit that the person they ignored became the one they could never escape. So don't waste time proving them wrong with words. Prove them wrong by becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Let them watch. Let them envy. Let them drown in their own regret. Because you're unstoppable. Look who's still standing after everything they threw at you. After every lie they planted, every story they twisted, every room they poisoned before you even walked in. Welcome back to the ones who've been carrying the weight of accusations they never earned, the stain of rumors they never started, the ghost of a reputation destroyed by people who smiled to your face while sharpening knives behind your back. They thought they buried you, didn't they? Thought they covered their tracks so well that the truth would stay buried forever, that no one would ever dig deep enough to find what really happened. But here's what they didn't count on. Here's the part that's about to shatter their carefully constructed reality into a million irreparable pieces. Someone went looking. Someone who refused to believe their version. Someone who knew the story didn't add up. Someone who saw through the performance and decided to do what everyone else was too scared, too comfortable, too complicit to do. They went dark, they disappeared from the grid, cut every tie, burned every bridge, and went hunting for the one thing that could destroy the lie forever. The evidence, the proof, the undeniable truth that you were telling all along. And they found it, oh, they found it. Every deleted message, every altered screenshot, every forged timestamp, every coordinated attack, every private conversation where they admitted what they were doing to you, where they laughed about how easy it was to make everyone believe their fiction, where they planned each move like generals, orchestrating a war against someone who didn't even know they were on the battlefield. This person, this shadow, this silent warrior, didn't just find scraps. They found the entire architecture of the conspiracy, the blueprints of your destruction, the paper trail of malice, documented in real time by the very people who swore they were innocent. And now they're sitting on a nuclear file, a compilation so devastating that everyone who contributed to your downfall is about to experience the full weight of karmic justice, delivered in high-resolution screenshots, time-stamped confessions, and recorded conversations they thought were safely buried in deleted chats and private servers. They're not just ready to clear your name, they're ready to burn the entire system that tried to erase you, ready to expose every liar, every enabler, every coward who stayed silent while watching you suffer, ready to make sure that when people search your name years from now, they won't find the lies anymore. They'll find the truth, the real story, the evidence that proves you were right all along. Let's talk about what happened for a second, because people need to understand the level of psychological warfare you survived, the coordinated campaign of reputation assassination that was waged against you while you were just trying to exist, trying to defend yourself with nothing but your word against an army of storytellers who had the numbers, the the platform and the audience already convinced. They didn't just spread one lie, they built an entire narrative. A multi-layered false reality where you were the villain, the problem, the threat, and they were the victims, the heroes, the ones who had to warn everyone about how dangerous you were. They whispered in group chats. They made subtle posts that seemed innocent but were designed to plant seeds of doubt. They coordinated their timing so that every platform, every circle, every mutual friend heard the same distorted version of events within hours, creating an echo chamber so powerful that the truth didn't stand a chance. And you tried to defend yourself, tried to explain, tried to show people the reality. But every time you spoke, they twisted your words, called you defensive, called you unhinged, said your reaction was proof of everything they claimed, weaponizing your pain as evidence of your guilt. They isolated you systematically, turned your friends into informants, your allies into skeptics, your safe spaces into hostile territories where your very presence was treated like a contamination. And through it all, they smiled. They posted inspirational quotes about healing and boundaries. They played the role of mature, evolved souls who just wanted peace, while behind the scenes, they were architects of your destruction. But someone saw through it, someone who wasn't part of their circle, someone who watched from the outside and noticed the patterns, the inconsistencies, the way their story kept shifting, the way they all said the same things in slightly different words like they were reading from a script, the way they reacted too quickly, too coordinated, too aggressive whenever anyone questioned the narrative. This person started asking questions that no one else dared to ask, started looking at timelines that didn't match, started noticing how certain screenshots were cropped just a little too conveniently, how certain details changed depending on who was telling the story, how the people accusing you the loudest had the most to hide themselves. So they did something radical, something dangerous, something that required sacrificing their own social standing and safety. They went undercover. They infiltrated the inner circles. They played along. They earned trust. They listened to the unguarded conversations. They watched the masks slip when people thought no one was paying attention. And slowly, piece by piece, they collected the evidence, the real evidence, not the manufactured garbage that was presented as truth, but the actual communications, the actual admissions, the actual proof that this was a coordinated takedown, that you were targeted deliberately, that everything you said happened exactly the way you said it happened, and the people who destroyed your reputation knew it the whole time. Now they're sitting on files that read like a crime novel, conversations where your enemies discussed tactics, where they debated how far to push, where they celebrated small victories in isolating you, where they mocked your attempts to defend yourself, where they strategized about how to shut you down if you got too close to exposing them, where they reassured each other that no one would believe you anyway, because they had already poisoned every well, controlled every narrative, ensured that your voice would be dismissed as the ramblings of someone unstable, someone bitter, someone who just couldn't accept accountability. These files contain timestamps that prove they lied about when things happened, screenshots that show they edited and manipulated evidence before presenting it publicly, recordings that capture them admitting in private what they denied in public, witness statements from people who finally found the courage to tell the truth, people who were there, who saw what really happened, who were threatened or guilted into silence but couldn't live with the lie anymore. This evidence doesn't just suggest you were innocent, it proves it, with the kind of clarity that makes denial impossible. the kind of documentation that holds up under any scrutiny, the kind of truth that burns so bright it forces everyone who participated in your destruction to either confess or be exposed as the liars they are. And here's what's beautiful about this moment. Here's what makes this different from just another revenge fantasy. This isn't about you seeking vindication. You didn't go looking for this. You didn't demand it. You didn't manipulate or force anyone to clear your name. You simply survived. You simply kept walking, kept breathing, kept building a life in the ruins they left behind, and someone else, someone with nothing to gain and everything to lose, decided that the truth mattered more than their comfort, more than their social standing, more than staying in the good graces of the people who destroyed you. They saw injustice and couldn't stomach it. They saw you carrying a burden you didn't deserve and decided to lift it. They saw a system that rewards liars and punishes honesty and decided to break it. Not for recognition, not for praise, not even for your gratitude, but because watching someone suffer for telling the truth was more than their conscience could bear. This person became your ghost advocate, your shadow lawyer, your silent champion, working in darkness so that you could finally step into light, risking their own reputation to restore yours, knowing that when this evidence goes public, they'll face backlash too. They'll be called obsessed, bitter, someone with an agenda, someone who should mind their own business. But they don't care, because they know what you've been through. They know what it's like to watch someone drown, while everyone else pretends not to see. So what happens now? What happens when this evidence finally surfaces? When it's uploaded, shared, spread across every platform where your name was dragged through the mud, when everyone who participated in your destruction wakes up to find their lies exposed in uneditable, undeniable, permanent, public record. First comes the panic, the frantic deleting, the sudden account deactivations, the desperate attempts to control the damage, to spin a new narrative, to claim they were misunderstood, taken out of context, that things were different back then, that they've grown since then. All the predictable deflections of people who never thought they'd face consequences. Then comes the silence from people who were so loud when attacking you. Suddenly no one has anything to say. No one wants to address the evidence directly. They just quietly unfollow, quietly remove old posts, quietly hope it all blows over without them having to actually acknowledge what they did. Then comes the trickle of private messages, the half-hearted apologies sent in direct messages where no one else can see. The people who suddenly want to explain their side, want you to understand they were manipulated too, want forgiveness without accountability, want to be let off the hook without facing public reckoning. And finally comes the shift. The people who stayed silent when you needed them suddenly want to be on your side. Suddenly they always knew something was off. Suddenly they're angry on your behalf. Suddenly they want to be part of the story of your vindication, even though they were nowhere to be found during your crucifixion. But here's what they don't understand. Here's what none of them can grasp even now. This isn't about revenge for you anymore. This isn't about watching them squirm or collecting apologies like trophies. This isn't even about restoring your reputation, because somewhere along the way, somewhere in the depths of that isolation and false accusation, you stopped needing their validation, stopped needing their approval, stopped needing anything from a world that showed you how quickly truth becomes irrelevant when lies are more entertaining. And you've already done the work of rebuilding yourself in silence. You've already learned to stand without their support. You've already created a life where their opinions don't have power anymore, where their acceptance or rejection doesn't determine your worth, where you exist completely independent of their narratives and judgments. The evidence clearing your name isn't coming to save you because you already saved yourself. It's coming to expose them, to show the world what you've known all along, that they are the monsters they claimed you were, that they are the liars, the manipulators, the toxic ones who destroy people and call it accountability, who ruin lives and call it boundaries, who coordinate attacks and call it protecting the community. This evidence is a mirror, and they're about to see their true faces reflected back in undeniable clarity. And there's no filter, no angle, no edit that can make them look like anything other than what they are. Someone went dark for you, disappeared into the shadows where truth hides when lies become popular, and they did it knowing they might never get credit, knowing you might never even know it was them, knowing that the moment they release this evidence, they become a target too. But they did it anyway. Because some people still believe that truth matters, that justice matters, that watching an innocent person suffer is worse than any social consequence they might face. This person saw you when no one else wanted to look, believed you when everyone else chose comfort over truth, fought for you when you had stopped fighting for yourself, not because you were weak, but because you were exhausted, because fighting against an army of liars with nothing but your word is like trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon, futile and soul-crushing, and ultimately pointless, when everyone has already decided what to believe. But this person didn't stop, didn't give up, didn't decide that your truth was less important than their peace. They went to war on your behalf. In the darkness where wars for truth are actually fought, in the unsexy, unglamorous work of documentation, investigation, evidence collection, risking everything for someone who might never even thank them. And that is what real loyalty looks like. Not the performative posts, not the public declarations, but the silent, dangerous, costly action taken when no one is watching. And now the world is about to change. Not just your world, but theirs too. The people who built their reputations on your ruins are about to watch those reputations crumble. The people who gained followers, sympathy, and status by painting you as a monster are about to be revealed as the real monsters. The people who stayed silent, who went along, who enabled the lie because it was easier than standing up for truth, they're about to face the uncomfortable reality that they participated in destroying an innocent person, and no amount of justification, no amount of claiming they didn't know, no amount of distance will erase their complicity. Some of them will try to claim ignorance, will say they only heard one side, will act like they were victims of manipulation too, and maybe some of them were. Maybe some genuinely believed the lies because they were told so convincingly. But that doesn't change what they did. Doesn't erase the words they said, the accusations they spread, the pain they caused. Ignorance is not innocence when someone is screaming the truth and you choose not to listen, because listening would require you to question people you like, to confront uncomfortable realities, to admit you might have been wrong. The evidence is coming, and it's not a leak, it's not a rumor, it's not speculation, it's documentation, it's proof. It's the kind of truth that doesn't need interpretation or spin or devil's advocate debates. It simply is. undeniable, irrefutable, permanent. And when it drops, when it spreads across every platform where your name was destroyed, when it reaches every person who judged you, when it lands in the inbox of every person who participated in your downfall, the reckoning begins. Not the reckoning you wanted back when you were drowning in false accusations, desperately trying to prove your innocence, but the reckoning that comes when you've already survived, already healed, already built a new life. The reckoning that isn't about saving you, but about exposing them, about ensuring that their actions have consequences, about making sure that the next person they target has evidence that these people are capable of coordinated destruction. You pick a fight, and now you beat everyone they about creating a record that can't be deleted, can't be edited, can't be gaslit away when they try to do this again. Because people like this always do it again, always find a new target, always need a villain to unite against, always need someone to destroy, to feel powerful. Someone went dark, went silent, went underground, and emerged with fire, with proof, with the weapon that destroys lies, truth, raw, documented, undeniable truth. And they're not asking for your permission to release it. They're not checking if you're ready. They're not waiting for the perfect moment. They're simply doing what should have been done from the beginning, presenting reality without filter, without spin, without the manipulation that turned your life into their entertainment. And when this evidence becomes public knowledge, when it's archived, shared, cited, referenced, when it becomes part of the permanent record associated with your name and their names, everything changes. The narrative they controlled so completely for so long shattered. The story they told themselves to justify their actions falls apart. The comfortable lie they've been living inside explodes, and they're left standing in the ruins of their own creation, exposed, accountable, and facing the consequences they were so certain they'd never face, because they thought they'd won, thought they'd gotten away with it, thought your silence meant defeat, thought your survival was just stubbornness, thought time would erase their crime. But time doesn't erase truth, it only makes lies more obvious. They're about to learn what you already know, that there's a difference between getting away with something and actually being innocent, that there's a cost to destroying someone, even if you never face immediate consequences, that the universe keeps receipts even when people delete them, that someone is always watching, always documenting, always collecting evidence, always waiting for the right moment to bring truth into light. And that moment is now. Not because you demanded it, not because you manipulated it into existence, but because someone who saw injustice couldn't stomach it anymore. Someone who watched you suffer decided that your suffering meant more than their comfort. Someone who had nothing to gain and everything to lose decided that truth was worth the risk. And that's the real story here. Not just that you were innocent, not just that you were right, not just that they were lying, but that in a world where lying is easier, where going along is safer, where silence is rewarded, someone chose difficulty, chose danger, chose to stand alone in defense of truth, chose you when choosing you cost them everything. And that choice, that sacrifice, that silent warfare waged in darkness on your behalf, that's the evidence that goodness still exists. That loyalty still exists, that there are still people who believe some things matter more than popularity, more than safety, more than the comfort of staying in everyone's good graces. So here's what you need to understand as this evidence prepares to surface, as the person who found it prepares to release it, as the world prepares to see what you've known all along. You don't owe anyone anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not acceptance of their apologies, not patience with their excuses, not compassion for their discomfort when truth arrives. You don't owe them peace. You don't owe them closure. Shh. Listen. Do you hear it? That whisper in your mind. The one that's been there since you were a child. The one that said, "You're different." The one that told you, "They'll never understand you." But then the world came along, wrapped its cold fingers around your throat and started to squeeze. "Stay in your place," they said. "Don't stand too tall. Don't speak too loud. Don't be too much." Oh, they wanted you small. They wanted you tame, because if you ever saw the truth, if you ever realized what you really are, they wouldn't be able to sleep at night. They convinced you that you were powerless, just another cog in their machine, another nameless, faceless pawn in their little game. But tell me, have you ever felt it? That flicker inside you, that itch in your bones, that strange electric hume under your skin? That's not fear, that's power. They've spent years trying to smother it, pouring water over your fire, filling your head with doubts. They told you to be humble, to be quiet, to blend in. But deep down, you always knew you were never meant to be like them. You were never meant to follow the herd, to live in a cage built by cowards. You were meant to burn. And the best part? They know it, they see it, they feel it, and it terrifies them. Oh, you've seen it, haven't you? The way their eyes shift when you walk into a room, the way their smiles twitch just for a second, like they're not sure if they should be welcoming you or fearing you. They can't quite place it, can't put it into words, but something about you unsettles them. It's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's something deeper. Something in the way you exist. You don't follow their script. You don't shrink. You don't beg for permission to breathe. And that makes them nervous. Because the world is built on predictability, on control, and you, my friend, you don't fit the mold. They watch you like a puzzle with missing pieces, like a storm cloud on the horizon, beautiful, untamed, and just unpredictable enough to be dangerous, because they don't understand you. And what people don't understand, they fear. Not because you're violent, not because you threaten them. No, no, that would be too easy. They fear you because you can't be tamed, because you don't need their approval, because you don't need them at all. And oh, how that terrifies them, how it eats at them, because most people are desperate to be accepted. They fold themselves into smaller and smaller shapes just to fit in, but you stand tall. And that is dangerous. They see something in you that they lack, a presence, a power, a silent, unshakable knowing that makes their stomach turn. Because deep down, they can feel it, the truth they refuse to face. You don't belong in their little world. You were made for something more. And the best part, they can't do a damn thing about it. Look closely. Watch their eyes when you walk in. That flicker, that hesitation, that split second where their instincts kick in before their masks slip back on. You see it, don't you? Fear. Not the kind that comes from fists or weapons, no, no. That's too simple, too obvious. This fear, it runs deeper. It's the fear of something they can't control, something they can't predict. Weak people don't fear violence. They don't fear chaos. They fear freedom, the kind that burns in your eyes, the kind that says, I don't need your rules. I don't need your approval. I don't need you. That's what shakes them to their core. That's what makes their voices a little too high, their laughter a little too forced. You don't even have to say a word. Your existence is a warning. Because you think, you question, you see. You don't swallow their lies like candy. Don't nod along like a puppet on their strings. And that makes you a problem. A glitch in their system. A loose thread in their delicate little tapestry of control. They built this world for people who follow, who obey, who kneel. But you won't. And that's why they want you gone. That's why they try to dull your edges, to make you doubt, to make you small. But they can't, because you know too much, because you've felt what real power is. Not dominance, not control, but the unshakable truth of who you are. And once you've felt that, there's no going back. So they whisper, they plot, they try to box you in, clip your wings, break your spirit, but all they're really doing is proving how much power you already have. They've fed you lies since the day you could crawl, told you that power is in bank accounts, in titles, in the weight of a name that carries prestige. That's their illusion, their little trick to keep you blind. Because real power is something they can't measure. It's not about how much you own. It's about how much you can't be owned. It's not about how many people know your name. It's about whether you know who you are when the world tries to rewrite you. And that is something no amount of money can buy. Because true power, it's not loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It's the quiet storm behind your eyes, the steel in your spine, the fact that no matter what they throw at you, no matter how many times they push, pull, or tear you down, you don't break. It's the unshakable belief that you belong to no one. That your mind, your soul, your fire, they are yours and yours alone. It's walking through the world, through the noise, through the chaos, and knowing that nothing can touch you unless you let it. And that terrifies them, because people who know who they are can't be manipulated. They can't be scared into submission, bribed into silence, or guilted into obedience. They see through the games, the tricks, the carefully constructed walls designed to keep them small. And once you see, you never unsee. That's why they keep you distracted, why they drown you in mindless entertainment, in endless scrolling, in cheap dopamine hits that keep you weak, tired, numb. Because the moment you wake up, the moment you step out of their illusion and into your true self, you become unstoppable. And that's what they fear most. Not your fists, not your rage, but your clarity, your ability to stand in the middle of the storm, smiling, unbothered, untamed. The fact that you can lose everything, money, status, approval, and still walk like a king. Because kings aren't made by gold, they're made by fire. And you were born in it. They've been playing this game longer than you've been alive. Masters of control, architects of doubt. They don't need chains to keep you shackled. No, no, their weapons are far more subtle, invisible. They use fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear that if you step too far, if you shine too bright, the world will turn on you. They whisper it in your ear before you even know what strength feels like. Be careful. Don't stand out too much. Stay in line. And so, you hesitate. You second guess, you shrink, while they thrive off the potential you never claimed. They bet on your hesitation. They profit from your doubt. And it's brilliant, really, because the best cages, they don't look like cages at all. They look like comfort, like stability, like a life that's just good enough to keep you from reaching for more. They feed you praise in small doses, just enough to keep you dependent, just enough to keep you hungry for their approval. But what happens when you stop needing it? When their words, their validation, their entire system of control becomes meaningless to you? That's when the fun begins. Because the moment you stop chasing their acceptance, their power over you crumbles. They can't manipulate a man who isn't afraid to stand alone. They can't control someone who doesn't care about fitting in. And they despise that. It terrifies them. Because once you realize you were never meant to be a pawn in their little game, you start making your own rules. So they panic. They attack. They try to drag you back into their world of smallness, of self-doubt, of carefully constructed limits. They call you arrogant, reckless, dangerous. But deep down, they know the truth. You've woken up. You've slipped through their fingers. And now, they don't control you anymore. Now, you set the rules. Now, you decide how the game is played. And trust me, they're not ready for that. There was a moment, wasn't there? A split second when everything clicked, when the noise of the world faded, and for the first time you felt it, that power, that fire inside you, the raw, untamed force that had been caged for too long. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't an accident, it was you. Remember the time you didn't break? When they pushed and you didn't fall? When they tried to bury you and you clawed your way back? You thought it was luck, a fluke, but no. That was your true self peeking through the cracks, and for a moment, they saw it too, and it scared the hell out of them. Because power like that, it can't be controlled. It doesn't bow. It doesn't beg. And the world isn't built for people like you. It's built to tame you, to dull your edges, to drown you in self-doubt so you never step into what you truly are. But now you see, you've had a taste of what you're capable of. And here's the real question. What happens when you stop holding back? What happens when you finally rip off the mask of self-doubt and unleash the storm you were always meant to be? Oh, they won't like that. Not one bit. They'll scramble. They'll panic. They'll whisper, "You've changed." No. You haven't changed. You've returned to what you were always meant to be. And the best part? There's no turning back. Not now. Not ever. Pain, the great equalizer, the currency of the strong. The weak curse it, hide from it, crumble beneath it. But you learn to hold it in your hands, to let it seep into your bones, to shape you into something more. Every betrayal, every failure, Every night you stared at the ceiling, fists clenched, chest burning, asking why. They weren't punishments, they were lessons. And while others wept over their wounds, you sharpened yours into weapons. Pain is the fire that forges warriors. It strips away the illusions, the lies, the softness. It leaves behind something pure, something terrifying. Weaklings run from it. The powerful, they drink it like wine. They let it carve them into something unbreakable. They don't understand, do they? They think suffering makes you less, that hardship is a weight meant to crush you. But the truth is that pain is a gift, because while others avoid it, you embrace it. You let it build you, brick by agonizing brick, until you become something they can't touch. Every scar, every crack, every shattered piece you stitched back together, it all means something now. It's armor. It's proof. It's a reminder that you have already survived the worst. And that makes you dangerous. Because what do you do with someone who has nothing left to fear? Someone who has already been burned alive and came back laughing? You can't break them. You can't stop them. You can't control them. So let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how you keep getting back up. They don't need to know your secret. That pain isn't your weakness. It's your fuel. No more shrinking. No more biting your tongue. No more making yourself small just to keep others comfortable. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand above, to make them question everything they thought they knew. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be understood. You are here to shake the very ground they stand on, to dismantle the lies they built their fragile world upon. You are the storm, the wildfire, the chaos they never saw coming. They spent years convincing you to hold back, to tone it down, to be a little less. But tell me, why should a lion pretend to be a sheep? Why should a force of nature apologize for existing? They fear what they can't control, and you, my friend, you are unstoppable. It's time to stop hesitating, time to stop waiting for permission that will never come. They will never be ready for what you are, so unleash it anyway. Step into your power, full fludge, literally. Let them call you crazy. Let them whisper. Let them try to box you in. They don't understand the kind of madness it takes to rewrite the rules, the kind of hunger, the kind of obsession that turns dreams into reality. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You only need one thing: the will to act. Because once you step into who you were always meant to be, nothing can stop you. So let the world watch in terror as you rise. Let them feel it in their bones. The shift, the tremor, the inevitable reckoning. They tried to keep you caged. Now they get to see what happens when a caged beast breaks free. The moment you rise, the moment you refuse to bow, the knives will come out. You will see the whispers turn into shouts, the applause turn into resentment. They will call you arrogant, dangerous, too much. Let them. Their hatred is proof that you have broken free, that you no longer fit into the tiny box they built for you. Weak people despise strength, not because it harms them, but because it reminds them of everything they refuse to become. They will mock you. They will try to tear you down, twist your story, paint you as the villain. But don't you see? Every legend was a villain in someone's tale before they became a myth, before they became unstoppable. You were never meant to be universally loved. You were never meant to be the safe, the predictable, the acceptable one. The ones who change the world, they are feared first, envied, hated, and then respected. They won't clap for you now. They won't cheer. Not yet. Because to them, you are a reminder of everything they settled for. And nothing terrifies people more than someone who refused to settle. So let them talk. Let them stare. Let them seed in their own mediocrity while you carve your own throne from the ruins of their expectations. They can hate all they want, but soon they will have no choice but to watch. Because while they waste their breath, you are building an empire. While they scream into the void, you are becoming a force they cannot ignore. They fear you now, but one day, they'll wish they had stood beside you instead of against you. You are the storm they never saw coming. The quiet one. The underestimated one. The one they thought they had figured out. But storms don't announce their arrival. They just consume everything in their path. They thought they could keep you in chains, thought they could break your will, mold you into something safe, something small, but all they did was teach you how to break free. And now you are something they cannot contain. They feel it in the way you walk, in the way you speak, in the way you don't beg for permission anymore. It terrifies them because deep down they know you are no longer one of them. The world only fears what it does not control, and you are unstoppable now. The rules they forced on you, you rewrite them. The limits they imposed, you shatter them. The doubts they fed you, fuel for the fire. They feel it, that energy, that fire inside you. They pretend they don't see it, but their actions betray them. The nervous glances, the fake smiles, the sudden respect that wasn't there before. They know. And soon they will have no choice but to acknowledge the truth. You were never weak, you were never broken, you were only waiting, watching, preparing. And now the waiting is over. Now it's your turn.